she whispered. "Don't let me die." And in that moment, a tired factory worker became something more. A quiet guardian who refused to let her slip away. The town of Maple Hollow rested under a September sky, stars blurred behind drifting clouds. Pine needles glistened from a late shower, and the cool night air carried the scent of earth and wood smoke from distant chimneys. For most, it was nothing more than an ordinary Friday night. Families settled in front of televisions. Teenagers huddled in diners. Patrol cars hummed along the sleepy streets. But for Michael Harland, this was the hour he carved out for peace. 12 grinding hours at the paper mill had left his shoulders tight and his hands aching. The machines never stopped, and neither did the worries. Overdue bills stacked on the kitchen counter, the loneliness that crept into every corner of the house, and the fading laughter of his daughter, Hannah, who smiled less and less these days. And then there was the silence where his wife's voice used to live. Michael pulled on a faded flannel, grabbed the leash hanging by the door, and called softly, "Come on, Duke." A massive German shepherd bounded down from the porch. His amber eyes shone in the porch light, ears pricked, tail swinging like a slow pendulum. Duke wasn't just a dog. He was guardian, family, and the glue that often held Michael and Hannah together. Michael clipped on the leash, but Duke rarely needed it. They shared an unspoken rhythm, a bond built from nights like this one. Together they stepped onto the trail behind the house, a narrow path of crushed leaves winding deep into the woods. Michael loved these walks. They steadied him. They reminded him there was still beauty left in the world, even after it had stolen so much. But that night, the world broke open. A sound froze him in his tracks. Not an animal, not the usual rustle of leaves or crack of a branch. This was human, a muffled groan, broken, faint, almost swallowed by the night. Duke stiffened. His ears shot forward, hackles rising as a low rumble built in his chest. Michael raised his flashlight, its beam trembling as his pulse quickened. The light swept across the trail, catching on something unnatural. Dark fabric tangled in broken branches. He stepped closer, and then he saw her. A woman, a uniform. Her body half hidden beneath snapped limbs. Her skin pale as bone, lips tinged blue under the cold moonlight. Blood seeped into the dirt, pooling beneath her badge. A police officer, and she was dying. Michael's breath caught in his throat. For a heartbeat, he was frozen. Just a single father, just a man who clocked in and out of machines. What could he do? But then, the past came rushing back. The desert heat of Iraq, nights lit by gunfire, the metallic sting of blood in the air, the cries of brothers too young to die. Michael had been a Marine medic once. He had pressed his palms against wounds that shouldn't have been survivable. He had whispered the same words into desperate ears. "I've got you. You're not alone." He thought he'd buried that part of himself when he came home, but it lived inside him still. And now, under the glow of the moon, it demanded to return. He dropped to his knees. His hands trembled, but when they touched her, they remembered. Her name tag read Officer Claire Donovan. Her eyes fluttered open. She barely managed to shape the words. "Don't let me die." And in that moment, Michael wasn't a factory worker anymore. He was a medic, a guardian, a man who refused to surrender her to the dark. "Stay with me, Duke," he muttered, voice steady despite the pounding in his chest. He pressed his palm against the wound, hot and slick with blood. His knees sank into the cold earth as he leaned his weight forward, locking his jaw. "Stay with me, officer," he urged. "I'm not letting you go." Duke circled her boots, whining softly, nudging her with his nose as if begging her to hold on. The woods swallowed the world. No sirens, no headlights, no one else was coming. Just them. Michael's mind flashed to Hannah, sleeping in her small bedroom back home, her drawings taped across the fridge, crayon sketches of a family that wasn't whole anymore. He thought of Laura, his wife. The accident, the rain-slick road, the headlights that never stopped, the phone call that shattered his life. He remembered sitting Hannah down, her tiny body trembling as she asked over and over, "When is Mom coming back?" He hadn't had an answer, only silence, only tears. He swore no other child deserved to hear silence when they begged for hope. Not tonight. Not while he still had strength left. "Not tonight," Michael growled under his breath. He yanked at his own shirt, tearing it down the middle with his teeth, the fabric ripping into strips. He pressed the cloth against her side, packing it tight, his hands stained crimson. Claire gasped, arching in pain, but his voice was steady, close, unwavering. "Look at me, right here. You're not alone. You've got a reason to fight." Her eyes rolled, unfocused, but she clung to the sound of his voice. And he clung to the memory of Marines who had once done the same. Some lived, some didn't. Tonight he would not let death win. The minutes crawled like hours. Michael's arms burned, his knees ached, but he did not move. He pressed and pressed, whispering to her as Duke stood like a shadow at his side. Finally, headlights cut across the far end of the trail. Tires crunched gravel, radios crackled. 2 cruisers burst into view, uniformed officers spilled out, guns half drawn. "Step away," one shouted. "Hands where we can see." Michael didn't flinch. His hands stayed locked on the wound. "She's bleeding out," he barked. "If I let go, she dies." For a tense heartbeat, suspicion hardened their eyes. He was just a stranger, covered in blood, clutching one of their own. But then they saw it, the makeshift bandage, the steadiness of his grip, the German shepherd pacing protectively. "Medic!" an officer shouted, waving paramedics forward. Only then did Michael ease back. Medics swarmed in, sliding Claire onto a stretcher. Her hand shot out, weak but desperate, gripping his for just a second before they carried her away. Michael stood swaying. His chest heaved, his flannel soaked with her blood. Duke pressed against him, steady as stone. One officer whispered in awe, "He kept her alive." Another muttered, "She wouldn't have made it without him." Michael said nothing. He hadn't done it for them. Hours later, Michael sat in a plastic chair under the sterile lights of the hospital waiting room. His hands scrubbed raw, but still stained. Duke sprawled at his feet, head heavy on his paws. Every door creak made his pulse spike. Every boot echo made him look up. Finally, a man approached, broad-shouldered, gray at the temples, badge gleaming under harsh light. Captain Roy Halstead, head of Maple Hollow Police. He stopped in front of Michael, studying him in silence. Then slowly, he sat down. "You a doctor?" Halstead asked. Michael shook his head. "Factory worker, used to be a Marine medic, long time ago." Halstead exhaled through his nose. Well, tonight it wasn't a long time ago. Tonight it was the only thing that kept Claire Donovan alive. Michael shrugged. "I just did what anyone would have done." Halstead's eyes softened. "No, most people would have panicked, froze, run for help. You stayed, you bled with her. That's not ordinary." He leaned in, voice low. "You didn't just save an officer. You reminded us what service really means." The words landed heavy. For years, Michael had carried his scars in silence. The war, the crash that killed his wife, the crushing responsibility of raising Hannah alone. He had thought no one noticed, that his battles were invisible. But tonight someone had. Weeks later, Claire Donovan walked back into the station, pale but standing, alive. And every time her eyes met Michael's, her hand brushed the scar hidden beneath her uniform, the place where his torn shirt had once held her life in. She carried a vow, that her second chance wasn't luck, it wasn't medicine. It was a quiet man and his loyal dog who refused to let her die alone. Life didn't suddenly become easy. Michael still worked long shifts. Bills still piled. Hannah still had nights where grief folded her into tears, curled against Duke's fur. But something had changed. The police force began to call him the Quiet Guardian. Hannah overheard one day and rushed to her crayons. She drew her father standing tall with Duke, a cape flowing behind them. She taped it proudly to the fridge. Michael tried to hide his tears, but she saw. "Mom would be proud," she whispered, hugging him tight. And for the first time in years, he believed it. Michael's words became legend among the force, retold in roll calls and locker rooms. Honor isn't loud, it's what you do when no one's watching. Sometimes heroes wear uniforms, sometimes they walk their dogs at night. And now I want to ask you, do you believe one act of courage can change how a person is remembered forever? Share your thoughts in the comments, tell us where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that honor the quiet strength inside ordinary people.